Welcome to episode 1324 of The Sleeper on the Bus. I'm Justin Mason, joined by Jason Collette. How you doing, my friend?
It's party time. If you're watching video, you see the Devil Rays hat. It's throwback time. Let's go. It has been. I had to text Justin last night. I'm like, hey, we definitely should talk today because I was afraid you guys were going to have like 86 trades to review on Wednesday or Tuesday evening, whatever that was going to be. Because oh my God, I told Justin this off air, but Joe Sheehan sent his his newsletter out. The latest installment came this morning. If you're not a subscriber, go subscribe. I don't subscribe to a lot of things. Joe's newsletter is one of them. But he makes mention, like he went and looked, like show me all the trade deadline transactions 3 to 5 days before that deadline. 2021, 5. 2022, 5. 2023, 5. As we record this, because who knows what's going to happen in the next hour. 15. We've had 15 trades in the last 72 hours. I know you guys talked about some of those the other day, but there's been a lot of activity since. So it's like I'm looking at the rundown and it's like, don't even have to talk about a Rosarena, and we still have a double-digit bullet point here.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of talk, and Paul even asked me on the show, I think last week, like, hey, you think we're going to have a very active trade deadline? There are a lot of people thought this was going to be kind of a boring trade deadline, and it is not. I mean, we're at this point on Sunday. We still have like 48 hours until the trade deadline, and we've got a ton to talk about. We will touch on some FAAB, but a lot of the FAAB that we're going to be discussing will be kind of involved with the trades that we're talking as well. So your team is definitely selling. We're seeing, kind of a mini rebuild here, I think. For you guys, I'm hoping my team sells. Blake Snell went out last night and just dominated.
Wow, that was impressive, dude.
Yeah,
no will to win. Lacked the TWTW, but 15 strikeouts in 6 days.
Yeah, it was really, really impressive. And he has been really impressive since coming back. So I'm hoping they kind of turn that into a trade because I think everybody thinks he's going to opt out at the end of the season anyway. So it'll be a nice little rental piece for somebody. But we'll see if my team decides to actually sell or if they, sit on the fence like they have the last few years. But let's jump into your team, and we'll talk about the trade that happened pretty much right after Paul and I finished recording, which is Zach Eflin traded to the Orioles. Where are you at on Eflin rest of the way? Did you like this deal for your team?
Let's work backwards. No, I didn't like the deal. So we've had 3 deals with a Rosarena and Eflin and now Adam being traded. I like the Adam deal the most. I understand the Rosarena deal and I hate the Eflin deal. And I don't appear to be alone in the hatred of the Eflin deal. Most of what I read, I'm by no means prospect town, but there are people that I respect, like RJ Anderson from CBS Sports. I've known him since he was a Rays blogger way back in the day, D-Rays Bay. So it's, I trust his opinion. You look at it, everybody was saying light return for Eflin. It's kind of surprised that it didn't surprise me that they made the deal. I mean, yeah, the 18 million next year, whatnot. His health has, always been up and down. They've had a nice run of health with him for the most part while he's been here. But at the same time, a front line starter should bring back more than 3 low-level prospects that were just drafted in the organization last year. I would like to see, given the amount of prospects Baltimore has in their system, it would have been nice to have somebody a little closer to the major league level. I will say this, and I've said this multiple times on this podcast, all trades, fantasy, real baseball, need 2 years to breathe. Come back to it in 2 years and look at it and drop judgment. That said, I still think this trade's going to stink in 2 years for the Zach Eflin deal. But I would remind people 2 years ago, the Rays robbed the Phillies when they got Curtis Mead for Christopher Sanchez. How's that deal looking now? So that's you have to let these things breathe. And the fan in me is like, this sucks. If I could literally take off my hat and just like be an analyst for a second, I need to give it 2 years. But put my hat back on. This trade sucks. It's great for Baltimore. It's good for Eflin. And from roster perspective, Jeffrey Springs is ready to come off. He's going to be activated Tuesday, Wednesday, so he's going to jump into that spot of the rotation. The difference is Zach Eflin, when he was right, could go 6-7 innings every time out and not even bat an eye because he just doesn't walk anybody. Although his last outing, he walked 4 guys, just like weird. He almost doubled his season walk total. Springs is not going to be that guy. I would be surprised if Springs goes 5 innings every time out because, again, you're talking about a guy coming back from Tommy John surgery, and his best pitch is a field pitch changeup. So I want to see what's there. But Rasmussen's also coming back, but he's coming back to the bullpen. It wouldn't surprise me if he takes over Jason Adams' role because Rasmussen's been throwing upper 90s down there. And, we're talking about a guy who's essentially now had 3 elbow surgeries, 2 Tommy Johns, and 1 kind of cleanup type of thing. I don't see a future for him back in the rotation. So he could come in the bullpen, kind of like John Smoltz did, and say, whatever, I'm going to throw until it gives out again, and then I'm done. So we'll see where that goes. But roster wise, going to Baltimore side, I guess that's going to be Albert Suarez, who hasn't pitched that well. Him coming out, and maybe that's where things stand. But it's good to see Baltimore putting in this level of activity because they're seeing their chance with the Yankees kind of floundering. I know the Yankees came back last night, but the Yankees winning 3 games in a row seems to be a rare thing these days.
Yeah, I actually think the guy who's coming out of the Orioles rotation is going to be Cade Povich. So
he needs to come out too.
yeah. So now the Orioles are still linked to a bunch of starters. I think they will add another starter here at some point over the next few days, and that will probably take away Albert Suarez's role. But I love this move for the Orioles. I'm sorry about it for your team, but you're moving Eflin, who's been a great pitcher, to one of the best pitchers parks in all of baseball. You're going to get a ton of win potential with Eflin. If you have been patient with Eflin and not dropped him in your shallower leagues, though I know some people did when he was struggling earlier on in the season, you're about to get rewarded huge because I think he's going to have a massive kind of stretch run here. So love this deal for Baltimore. And I am sorry for your team.
Yeah, no, I mean, in all seriousness, and this is something my friend Stu has talked about in a group text is, the team's building for a relaunch with the new stadium coming up. So it's like, it's tough to be mad. I was looking back at this morning. The last time this club has won fewer than 80 games was in 2016 when they went 68-94. That's the last time that they have won fewer in a full season, mind you. I mean, 2020, nobody won that many games, but they had it. The last time that they have won fewer than 80 games was then. And even if you go all the way back to in the Devil Ray era, that one season, that's the only time they had fewer than 75 wins. So it's like likely going to be entering, you would think that they're entering a phase where they may be posting another year or 2 on top of that. But even in previous down cycles, somehow they've still managed to win 77, 80 games. I mean, some of those 10 years ago, those weren't the deepest of rosters, yet they were still winning games. So I'm not going to quit the team. I'm just a little frustrated as a fan going, but I get it. They didn't. I know they had a 17% chance to make the playoffs. They're giving up a lot more runs than they're scoring, and they had the toughest schedule remaining in baseball. And you have to make a decision. And one thing I will applaud Tampa Bay for doing is making the decision. I don't think they knew. I don't think they knew coming out of the break, but I made a comment to Jason Hanselman. I said, as soon as they lose the 3rd game, they're selling. Like they had a nice strength of schedule for July, but August and September gets really hard. And I just like, if they lose 3 games in the next 10 days, they're selling. And they, the Texas series, the sweep against Texas was really tough, but then they lost the 1 against Toronto and they lost the 2 against the Yankees. And by then it was like, okay, it's time to go. And it seems like they did. So again, I applaud them for going out and getting in front of this rather than waiting until the final moments of the trade deadline and trying to get what they can. I mean, again, on the aggregate, they've done well. I have my qualms with the Eflin trade. We'll talk about the Adam trade. And I know you guys talked about the Arozarena trade. On the aggregate, satisfied. Individually, I have different opinions.
Yeah, I mean, this has been my biggest criticism of my Giants at the trade deadline for the last 3 or 4 years, which has been that they sit on the fence. They kind of try to play this, hey, we're not going to sell, but we're also not going to try to buy right now. We're just going to kind of, maybe move some ancillary pieces around and then hope that we have enough to make the playoffs and see if we can do some damage as we get there. And it hasn't worked well. They missed the playoffs a bunch. And they haven't gotten better, especially in their farm system. So I applaud the Rays for what they're doing. I think this is the right decision. Let's continue on with the Orioles and talk about their next trade, which was they got Seranthony, Dominguez, and Christian Pache. They send Austin Hayes to the Phillies. What's your take on this?
They needed this. I wrote an article at RotoWire this week looking at looking at the non-closing situations for bullpens for the most part. I could not write an article about Baltimore's bullpen and not talk about how Craig Kimbrell's testing it. But they needed to put extra pieces, extra pillars in the bridge between the rotation and a win. Because these guys can't stay in forever, and the bullpen's had some problems. Kimbrell's already blown as many saves this year as he has in any season since 2011. He blew 8 saves that year. And this year, he's just been blowing saves left and right. They needed help. I don't even think they're done here. Tanner Scott makes so much sense for a homecoming here. So much sense, it almost hurts that trade hasn't already happened. It's almost, maybe it's because they just lost Mateo and they promoted Connor Norby, but we've all been trying to put Norby in some other organization forever. And like that Norby for Scott trade feels like such a given. And maybe Miami is just sitting on it because they're seeing what these relievers are going for. And it's like, okay, if the Rays can get what they just got for Jason Adam, then we need to keep shopping Tanner Scott because there are a few teams that can do this. But Seranthony Dominguez certainly gives some depth to them. And, Austin Hayes needed another opportunity. It's kind of unfortunate that he was being marginalized as much as he was. You don't have as much trouble marginalizing Christian Pache because he realizes he is what he is. And he's the ideal reserve guy on this team. Ideal. And Austin Hayes has a better opportunity. So it's a win-win for both clubs. Quite honestly, I don't know if it's a fantasy win-win for either. Dominguez might get a little more opportunity in Baltimore because he's certainly done it before. But I don't think Baltimore's done here. I think this is just a piece. And they need another piece because you look at what the bullpen has. Jacob Webb, Yiner Cano's been up and down. Perez certainly needs help as another. Perez and Aiken have been the lefties, and Irvin's now the mop-up dude. He's the guy getting all the low leverage guys if somebody bombs, but they need another guy in this rotation or in this bullpen.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I thought this was a really, really smart trade for both teams. Quite honestly, I really liked it for Philadelphia. As well, because as we'll talk, they kind of replaced Seranthony Dominguez in that bullpen fairly quickly after. But Austin Hayes, I think he's going to start for right now, but he could easily be kind of the platoon partner with Brandon Marsh if they do add another piece, which, I think they probably will, considering they're the top team in their division as well. So really cool to see 2 first-place teams kind of trade pieces and kind of do a little bit of a win-win trade for both teams. Seranthony Dominguez makes a lot of sense to really strengthen that Baltimore bullpen. But I agree with you as well. Like, I think they're adding another piece. I think they've got to add another piece to this bullpen. And Scott makes a ton of sense as an option. So we'll see. The Orioles have done both of these trades, and they've yet to trade one of their top 100 prospects. So you would think that there is a bigger trade than they've even pulled off so far coming down the pike at some point. So I'll be really, really interested to see what they do because they haven't traded any of the outfielders other than Austin Hayes. They haven't traded any of their outfield prospects that are all blocked off. So we'll see what happens. Next guy on the docket, we have the Yimi Garcia for Jonatan Clase. Clase goes to the Blue Jays. Yimi Garcia goes to the Mariners. Let's start with Clase. He was kind of blocked off a little bit in Seattle, wasn't getting very much playing time. Do you think he is on the Major League roster now in Toronto?
No, he's already been sent down. They already sent him to Buffalo because the only reason I know this is because late last night, one of my home leagues is a Saturday night FAAB league. And so I was like, nope, he got sent down. And that means he's ineligible for FAAB. But the only thing that Clase toolsy definitely has a lot of tools. But the fact that the worst offense in baseball outside of Chicago couldn't find use for this guy scares me. Clase has been on a couple of my teams this year as I was trying to chase some offense. It just didn't work. Now I think Clase could probably be in Toronto. He's just over the falls in Baltimore or in Buffalo. Not like it's going to take much time to get him there. Should they trade? Kiermaier's already said he's retiring. So it's like the Jays have zero trade leverage. So they could trade Kiermaier somewhere as a reserve and then it opens up a spot. So it's not like it's going to take much to open a spot for Clase here. But if he does get on the Major League roster this week, I would expect him to play every day. Come, hell or high water, they got nothing to lose. It becomes an audition time for them to see what's on this roster. But I don't believe the Jays aren't done making their deals either. But Clase should be on the Major League roster. He just isn't right now. So it's not actionable news. for this weekend FAAB unless something happens today for you. And he was like an NFBC league where he was drafted and cut or cut already. He was rostered and cut, so that would put him back in the pool with that. But that's really it. It's otherwise we're talking about it again next week once he's up.
Yeah, I completely agree. What about Yimi Garcia? Do you think that he is, in contention for saves in Seattle, or is he now just kind of middle relief, kind of bullpen strengthening? And then do you think this changes at all who's closing in Toronto?
So on the Seattle side of things, I thought this was originally a reaction to the fact that Gregory Santos came out of the game against the Angels on Wednesday with a knee tweak. Turns out nothing serious there. And he's not even going to the IL. He's there. And in fact, he pitched last night and threw 23 pitches last night in that contest. So I don't think anything changes in Seattle. I think Munoz is still the primary guy, but not the only guy. And it pains me a little bit to say as I'm trying to defend my AL labor title, because I have Munoz, I had Mason Miller, but I do have Chad Green. So let's transition that way. For the moment, Chad Green, I would believe, is the guy getting the saves in Toronto.
Yeah.
But as we were talking about earlier, if you have a reliever that has experience and you're not out there shopping him as a rebuilding team, what are you even doing? I think Chad Green's got a 25% shot at staying in Toronto because, I keep trying to put him on Cleveland. You look at Cleveland, they have six relievers with 40 plus games pitched. The only other team in baseball that has that is the Nationals. So you have a first place team and a last place team with the exact stat. That's never a good thing. And Stephen Vogt has really leaned on that bullpen. They need some more depth in that bullpen. So let's go ahead and say Chad Green gets traded. And we already saw Nate Pearson get sent away too. And I didn't think Nate Pearson had any chance at this role because he's kind of been, every time I watch him pitch, it's like a batter to batter experience. But for me, like if Chad Green gets dealt, then I would just go next man up and go Genesis Cabrera because I have seen him pitch a few times. And I know he's a lefty and but he's not the only lefty in that pen, but he's pretty much the only guy I would look at that and be like, if I'm trying to win a game, that's the guy I'm going to put in. And he's been pitching some 8th inning baseball. He got a win on Wednesday. He's pitched 3 of the last 5 games. So that's the guy that I would put in there. If not him, and for some reason they keep Trevor Richards around, Richards could end up just being the old man who does this. But Richards tends to be a multi-inning guy for them. But their whole script has been the same all year. They've been pretty much a last place team. So it's not like they're changing from, hey, we're a contender to or not. They've been a pretender all year. And it's unbelievable how talented that team was on paper and how badly they've played.
Well, and they're not going to be able to trade Bichette because he's going to be out for quite a while. Like, I assume that they're going to, move a guy like Justin Turner. We may see them even kind of, shop around, see if anybody wants to pick up the George Springer contract. But
that's a lot of contract, though. They're going to need a lot of that.
Yeah, it's a lot of contract. I mean, could they trade Vlad Guerrero Jr.? I don't know. I think they should. Because if they're not going to get him to re-sign a long-term deal, just like Bichette, like they should be trying to move both those guys. But we'll see. As far as like how the rest of that bullpen shakes out after they trade Chad Green, because I agree, I think they're going to trade Chad Green. I guess Genesis Cabrera makes the most amount of sense. Erik Swanson's a guy that got a little bit of kind of sleeper buzz coming into the season as a handcuff to Jordan Romano, but he's been terrible this year. So I can't imagine that's who they go to. I really, Trevor Richards actually might be the right call there.
And I would say another reminder with Erik Swanson. Remember, he had that off the field family issue back in spring, and it's like that's unfortunate. It's just a reminder that this game isn't always played between the lines. Stuff on the outside of lines can definitely impact stuff in between the lines because he was amazing. I mean, he was part of what helped me win AL labor last year. He was in my bullpen and the ratio help and the strikeouts, handful of wins, handful of saves. It definitely helped in the mono league. But I know he had the family issue and family health, I believe it was with one of his children. And that stuff outside the lines definitely impacts guys. And so you look at it and it's like, how does a guy that really never really give up a lot of home runs all of a sudden cannot stop giving up home runs? When he's pitched 5 home runs in 15 2/3. When he's been out there, he's just command has been an absolute problem. And, hopefully over the offseason, he gets the mental rest he needs and can come back and do something.
Yeah. let's talk about Nate Pearson. You mentioned him. He was traded over to the Cubs. Do we care about this for fantasy?
Was it the Cubs or the Diamondbacks?
I thought it was the Cubs. It was the Cubs.
It was Cubs. All right. For some reason, I had the Diamondbacks in my head. My bad. Like I said, I've seen Nate Pearson pitch a couple of times. The velocity is still where you would like it to be. But again, another guy that has struggled keeping the ball in the park, 8 home runs in 40 innings. And that's, to me, has been, when I've seen him pitch, it's been the command. The velocity is there. The command hasn't been. And for all the prospect hype around this guy, we're still talking about somebody who has a total of 115 and 2/3 innings in his major league career around this. And with a 5.21 ERA, it just hasn't been there. I hope he can find some success. And this year looked like it was going to be an opportunity for him to do so. And he can still strike guys out, but it's still, you cannot be a late inning leverage guy with the command issues that Pearson has had. It honestly has been a batter by batter situation. I've seen him utterly dominate some guys and then 4-pitch walk some other guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just don't see an outcome where he's a late inning guy for them, at least not this season. I mean, maybe they could figure something out of him. Maybe they see something in him, but I mean, he's a live arm, but other than that, like, he just can't control things or command things. So, though, I mean, they do have Hector Neris in the 9th inning right now, so maybe they don't care about command and control that much. Who knows?
And maybe this is their way to try to replace Jeremiah Estrada, who they never should have given away.
Yeah, but, absolutely. Yeah. Danny Jansen gets traded to the Red Sox. Where are you at on this trade? Does this open up finally full-time playing time for Alejandro Kirk in Toronto? And then what kind of playing time is Jansen looking at in Boston?
I don't know how it doesn't open up the opportunity for Kirk to get even more playing time, but who's the backup catcher now? Like, even roster resource doesn't have anybody. So I guess it's going to be Brian Serven, because they can just call him up and he has major league experience as a catcher. So I guess it would be him.
I would assume that's what they do. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there's anywhere else to go. You know, when I look at it, it was kind of a puzzling trade because Connor Wong is still doing well. And he's still catching 5 days a week. Reese McGuire is out there 1 day a week when he's not getting in fights. That was still funny. But, you know, the Connor Wong's out there every day. It's like, unless they're planning on getting rid of Reese McGuire, because, like, look, we can't have guys like teasing our backup catcher. I don't know where they're going to go with this. I mean, Jansen, I was surprised. Like I said, I'm just surprised this is where Jansen ended up going. I know, like, he has, I wanted to look up because, you know, it's going to be a stupid small sample size, but yeah, he's hit 184 in his career in Fenway with 4 home runs. I guess I remember all 4 home runs, but the batting average is probably, I don't know. I don't get this one. You know, fantasy wise, helps Kirk, hurts Jansen. I'm just surprised that this was the location, which tells me Boston has something else in mind, but I don't, unless they're just going to DFA Reese McGuire, I don't get it.
Yeah, my assumption is that they are going to DFA Reese McGuire here. I mean, they're not getting rid of Connor Wong. He's been, you know, very good this year. He plays quite a bit. I really don't understand quite the move either, because, like, you've got Yoshida, who is pretty much an everyday DH at this point. They're not putting him out into the field. I don't think, you know, as long as he's healthy, they're not taking away playing time. So, like, what was this move for, other than, you know, a backup catcher? I mean, Jansen is a good, you know, behind the plate catcher. You know, calls a good game. He's a good blocking catcher. But yeah, I don't really understand the move. There's so many other teams that needed an actual, like, you know, catcher on their roster. So it was surprising to me this is where he ended up.
The only thing I keep coming back to is potentially they were like, I don't want the Yankees to get him, so we'll take him. But I mean, Carlos Narvaez is fine as a second catcher, fine. And they're playing Austin Wells a ton, but perhaps it was more like, I don't want the Yankees to get him. We think the Yankees are reachable now, so we're going to go ahead and take on Jansen because we can. And we make the early decision rather than trying to wait it out, and they got him. So unless it's some other 3-way deal where they're going to throw him into some other trade. I don't, like I said, right now it doesn't make any sense, but we're going to see how the other cards fall.
That could be it. Maybe this is like, hey, this is the beginning of a trade, and they move Jansen here to a different team here in a little bit. So we'll kind of have to wait and see, but this is not great news for Jansen's kind of prospects, and from a fantasy perspective, because Wong's going to continue to play pretty regularly in Boston. Let's talk about those Yankees. They made a massive trade. They get Jazz Chisholm in exchange for a top-tier catching prospect and 2 other prospects. What are your thoughts on this deal?
Needed. I mean, it's weird. The Yankees have obviously been on the struggle bus for the last month. Who knew that Giancarlo Stanton was the glue that held this ship together? Because as soon as Stanton fell out, this offense is kind of falling apart. Yes, there are nights when the 2 big guys do what they do, the Yankees do well. When the 2 big guys don't do what they do, and the other teams can pitch around them or pitch to them with nobody on base, they don't do well. And so it's just been one of these crazy things where, Luis Severino was not wrong. There's 2 guys in your lineup. I will pitch around them and deal with it. So now this gives the lineup some more depth. There are reports that Stanton is going to be activated tomorrow in advance of the Philly series, which again, I could desperately use those RBIs in AL Labor. So that would move Austin Wells down the lineup a little bit. Gleyber Torres is starting to get hot, but the bottom half of that lineup is really thin. And so the fact that they just added Chisholm, and I guess Chisholm's going to be the leadoff, even though he's not a great leadoff type, he's going to be there because they still don't have a great leadoff fit unless they throw Soto there, which would be, which would suck for fantasy purposes. But Austin Wells should not be hitting cleanup, but he is. So, we'll see where this goes. But the fact that the Yankees they just got Chisholm. They're getting Stanton back tomorrow. All of a sudden, that lineup looks a lot better than what Luis Severino was criticizing a week ago.
What do they do with this lineup with Stanton coming back? Because once Stanton comes back, then you have Aaron Judge isn't the DH anymore. He's got to go out into the outfield. Verdugo's played fairly well this year. I don't think he necessarily should become in a reserve outfielder. Chisholm can play second base, but he hasn't played there this year. And like you said, Gleyber Torres is picking it up a little bit. Do you think there's another trade where they send a guy like Gleyber Torres somewhere else?
I don't know because, it's all trendy, but you look at Verdugo seems to be public enemy number 1 with the Yankees right now, the Yankees fan base. You look at his month-by-month splits. I'm just looking at batting average, 267, 245, 219, 203. I mean, he has been trending that. He's had 2 home runs since the end of May. To me, it's like he's the victim. The overall numbers are decent enough, but the recency bias is what's going to cost him. And so to me, I could see him taking that and going down there and perhaps, I honestly don't know what they do there because it's not like he becomes a clean platoon partner for anybody else. So if I'm the Yankees, I'm trying to sell Verdugo off and trying to find another switch hitter, another right-handed outfield. I mean, their bench, I guess for a star-laden team, your bench is perfect. Trent Grisham, Jahmai Jones, guys that can play once, should be playing once a week and be happy with it. Trent Grisham's been out there 4 times this week. That's too much for Trent Grisham. That's too much exposure. But, their bench is perfect in that regard. But if they can move Verdugo and get something, problem is I don't know how you can, after all the numbers they just rattled off, how do you move Verdugo? Because everybody is, if you've been watching the Yankee games, you see like he is a 4-3 machine right now. He should change his uniform number to 43 from 24 because there's a lot of ground balls at second base when he's up.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could move Verdugo. I mean, especially, I'm pretty sure he's in the last year of his contract. I will double check that. Yeah, he is. Yeah. So like, he's a rental. You could say, hey, we'll eat the money. You give us something back, and kind of. You can kind of see where it goes from there. So maybe Verdugo just hits the bench, right? Like, I mean, at this point, they're just such a stacked team. Putting a guy like Verdugo on the bench isn't a big deal for them. So I guess it is. I mean, it's a great move for Chisholm. This is an amazing part change. He's going to lead off for this team in front of Soto and Judge and Stanton. He's going to score a ton of runs. So, I mean, it's a fantastic trade for
the only thing I would add to that is I was kind of surprised that Josh Bell wasn't wrapped up into this. I mean, Ben Rice was fun early, but Ben Rice certainly has his flaws with being inexperienced. And I'm wondering, you look at the situation. Go ahead.
I think they believe in Ben Rice. Like I talked about him with Paul the other day. Like the underlying numbers on Ben Rice are really, really good. Like he's making a lot of in zone contact. He's hitting the ball really.
He makes some hard contact when he's able to get one in the zone. I just like, but there's still the inexperience factor type of thing. I just look at it like And maybe Miami's holding back because Houston could definitely use an upgrade at first base. Seattle probably is not done. And so there's opportunities there for them to get something done. But, I was talking with Ryan Boyer yesterday on the RotoWire podcast about this. And I'm like, I want Josh Bell this weekend in FAAB even before I know what the trade is. And then if the trade is terrible, like if he goes to the Seattle, it's like, okay, never mind. But I'll take him now on the cheap because if he lands in Houston, his value goes up. But if I can get him this week tonight on the cheap in advance of a trade, I'm intrigued. And if it's a bad location, if he gets sent somewhere as bench depth, then fine, cut.
I think it probably matters too for the Yankees because they don't want to go over the threshold. I can't remember what it's talking about right now.
Luxury tax?
The luxury tax. Thank you. And so it may be a matter of like what Miami was willing to eat on Josh Bell's remaining contract.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was a holdup or not. But I mean, I think Bell definitely gets moved at this point. I mean, you've got to think that pretty much everything in Miami that's not nailed down gets sent away here at some point. We already talked about Tanner Scott. It's really, really likely for him to go. Obviously we'll see Josh Bell get moved here at some point. The really interesting part is I don't even know who else they might move. Maybe a Trevor Rogers, but Trevor Rogers is only 26 years old, so they don't necessarily need to move him either. So, but it'll be interesting to see what else Miami trades away. I think they did okay. They got a pretty decent catching prospect in Augustin Ramirez that probably was going to have a hard time seeing light of day in New York anyways, and now they get kind of their catcher for the future in this deal. So pretty good move for Miami, though. I mean, obviously, I think it's weird that they traded away a young star like they did in this deal. So let's move back over to the reliever market and talk about Carlos Estevez. He gets moved to the Phillies, kind of replaces Seranthony and Dominguez. The question really becomes, is he closing in Philadelphia, or are they going to kind of stick with this kind of quasi committee they've been going with? Jeff Hoffman, who's been really, really good. And then what happens in Los Angeles now that Estevez is gone? He has been their lockdown kind of guy all season and for the last couple of seasons. And now it looks a little bit more wide open.
Yeah, the Phillies situation, man, I love the trade for Phillies. It's one of these things you look at it, you're just like, wow, they're already the best team record-wise in baseball, and now their bullpen gets more experience depth. I would say, you mentioned Jeff Hoffman. We've talked about Tanner Scott since the start of last season. Tanner Scott by FWAR is the best reliever in baseball. Next is Jeff Hoffman. Yeah. He's number 2. That's the crazy part. That's how good Jeff Hoffman has been since coming to Philadelphia. And they've used him in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. They have no problem using him anywhere. But that's kind of where it ends. Like, they've used Soto in places, they've had Alvarado in places, and sometimes they melt things down. But now it gives them another experienced guy. That's it. I don't think this is a primary. Estevez, you are our primary guy, because they've gotten this far with this committee, and why it's like it wasn't broken. This is clearly a move to play for the rest of the season and deep into the postseason with this. So it gives them some more experience with that, and certainly helps. I mean, you look at the crazy thing is, this is why it's good to have a nice rotation, because I'm looking at their bullpen usage, and their bullpen has really not pitched much. I look at Jeff Hoffman. He had to pitch Wednesday and Thursday through 20 pitches in each one of those. Alvarado was throwing 12 pitches all week. Gregory Soto was throwing 21 pitches all week. So they're rested enough. That said, this was a nice move to get some added depth and experience to this pen to give them another late inning option. So it's committee. It sucks as a fantasy manager if you had Carlos Estevez, because I think he had 23 saves at this point, 23, maybe he was 20 of 23. I forget what the exact number is.
I believe it's 20.
All right. It's going to be tough for him to get to 30. Yeah, he's at 20. So 20 of 23. So I don't see him getting to 30, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. But going over to the Angels, I don't know how this isn't Ben Joyce's job. Let Ben Joyce have it and see what happens. And because I try to look at it like take the experience level out of it. Matt Moore, not going to be on this team for another 72 hours. He's going to go away.
Yeah.
Luis Garcia is 38 years old. What's the point? Hans Kraus, Hunter Strickland, he's done it. He's 36. It's like, no, give this job to Ben Joyce and just see what happens. I mean, look what's happened with Mason Miller before he broke his non-pitching hand, which, by the way, just still pitch. Fantasy manager coming out. Sorry. But watch what he's done. Just let Ben Joyce go throw 103, 104 and see what happens. You got nothing else to lose. So that's how I see things shaking out with the Angels right now, unless they make a call. I was trying to look at other positions they may. I'm looking at depth charts and seeing what's out there, but no, that's kind of it. Unless they want to convert somebody to a different role, but I would just say go that direction. Let it be Ben Joyce and see what happens.
Yeah, Joyce is a guy that I went and picked up in a number of leagues over the last few weeks because I think he is the guy who's going to be kind of next up in Anaheim. Luis Garcia is a guy they've already been trying to dangling in trades. I expect him to get moved here in the next few days for something cheap, and Joyce will have this job all to himself. So it's pretty straightforward, I think, with the Angels. I agree with you that I think this is a committee still in Philadelphia. I think Carlos Estevez kind of takes over kind of the lead role, but they're going to kind of mix and match. It's what they've done the last few seasons. It's worked really, really well for them. I don't see any reason why they would kind of go away from that. So, yeah, if you had Carlos Estevez, this is kind of a bummer news. He gets on a better team, but he's on a team that is going to share those responsibilities in the ninth inning. We'll wrap up with some of the kind of more inconsequential trades. The one's a little bit interesting. James Paxton goes to the Red Sox. He was DFA'd by the Dodgers and traded before he was either sent down or more likely got his release from the Dodgers. Kind of gets a little reuniting in Boston after spending a season there here recently. Any interest in James Paxton now on the Red Sox?
No, not really. Lefty at Fenway, skills in decline. He got his 8 wins thanks to some really nice run support. That could still happen for him in Boston, but no.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably a streamer at best at this point of his career. So, I mean, we're talking about a guy who's had, 12% walk rate this year. The strikeout rate continues to tumble farther and farther down. So, I'm not using him outside of deep release as a streamer. So,
I mean, I'd be more interested in him if they turned him into a reliever to be like, hey,
yeah,
Cooper Criswell, you just pitched your ass off and Coors. We're going to leave you in the rotation and we're going to have Paxton hanging around in the back to help pick up a couple of innings. I'd be more honestly in a mono league. I'd be interested in him. A mono league situation where James Paxton's the starter. No, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. This one is a little bit more interesting. We get Jesse Winker traded to the Mets. Winker has been really, really good this season, and now getting to go to a team that's a little bit more competitive in these Mets. The problem is in Washington, they just let him have full playing time. They did not platoon him at all. He is more than likely going to be platooned in New York, so does this actually hurt his value?
Yeah, I would agree. You could see him in a platoon situation with Tyrone Taylor coming off the bench against the right. Taylor's been playing a bunch just because that's what they had to do. But with you got Jose Iglesias and Jeff McNeil and kind of a platoon situation, and Jesse Winker and Tyrone Taylor could be the option here. So he's going to lose. He, as in Winker, is going to lose a little bit of value here because he's not going to get the everyday at bats he was getting. I mean, Washington had him out there every single day, and I don't see that moving forward for him with the Mets.
Not only is he going to lose more playing time, he's also going to lose stolen bases. Jesse Winker had a sneaky, and Paul and I have discussed this a few times, 14 stolen bases this year. This is a guy that prior to the season had 3 career stolen bases in the major leagues, and he had 14 with the Nationals. And this is just because that's what the Nationals do. The Nationals are second in baseball, only behind the Reds with 144 stolen bases this season. Now, while the Mets are kind of middle of the pack in terms of stolen bases, they've got 74 stolen bases this year as a team. So all those stolen bases you were getting from Jesse Winker early in the season, those are probably gone. He might steal two or three more. But I mean,
and this isn't even on the rundown. Another guy I would bring up for that is Zach Neto, because you mentioned that. So Neto, in his career before this season, in his professional career, had 13 stolen bases in his professional career. He has 18 this season in 24 attempts. And that's going to get even better because the Angels have 58 more games remaining. They have arguably the easiest strength of schedule the rest of the way. And Zach Neto could get 230-plus steals. I'm just bringing that up now as if you're looking in stolen base category going, gee, what? Because I found when Ryan and I were talking on the RotoWire show yesterday, that Zach Neto was owned at under 50% of Yahoo leagues. And I'm like, with the stolen bases that he's providing, like if you had Winker and you're like, and you can get Neto, that's a guy that could get you 12 to 15 steals the rest of the way, because the Angels, they got nothing else to do. They're running too.
Yeah, that's a really, really good call. All right. And then the last one is the aforementioned Jason Adam trade to the Padres. I mean, this doesn't really change much, I don't think, for Adam's value. He's not going to be closing in San Diego, but did you have any thoughts that you wanted to add on?
Like I said, because of the reliever market the way it is, any team with good reliever that's looking for the future should be shopping these guys around, because you can get a nice return. I'm curious to see what, like, I would assume it's just going to be a next man up type of situation where Pache is now the setup guy and Kevin Kelly, Garrett Clevenger, but these guys have already been working a lot, and I'm not sure that all those names are still going to be sticking around in the next 72 hours either. Drew Rasmussen is very close to coming back. When he comes back, he's going to be a reliever. And so he's going to come. He may end up coming into this 8th inning situation right out of the gate and say, here, fine, let's see what, because remember, he's had that elbow worked on 3 times. So whatever's left is left there. And so very curious to see how all that's going to go with that. But with the return, it's like very timely, because the prospect team at Fangraphs just wrote up the Padres organization 2 weeks ago, and I was reading first thing I did. So Eric and Travis wrote that up, and it's like when I look at Dylan Lesko's thing, it's pretty easy to see why the Rays were really excited about getting him. Arguably the most complete high school pitching prospect to come along in a decade. Ideal pitching frame, velocity, and awesome changeup. Best, some scouts say the best they've ever seen. It's like right there, full stop. That's a Rays guy. And then they go get Homer Bush Jr. And oh my God, do I feel old just saying that, Homer Bush Jr., because I remember watching Homer Bush play. But Homer Bush Jr. is an 80 runner. And then they got the catching prospect and JD Gonzalez out of that, because the organization has just struggled to produce catchers. So as a fan, wearing the fan hat, I like the trade. And besides, you can never trust a guy with 2 first names to stay healthy. And Jason Adam, good luck down the line. But in all seriousness, he too has had a history of health issues, and he has delivered well above and beyond what anybody expected of him when the Rays acquired him kind of out of nowhere on a major league contract after the Royals were like, so it's really worked out well. But I don't know what the Rays situation is going to be moving forward. And Jason Adam just going to do the same thing for a different club. I mean, it's a great ad for the Padres from what he's able to bring. And I hope it works in an extent, because it's not like this was a rental. Jason Adams still got a couple of years of control to him too. So this this was more of a, hey, the market is paying a lot for relievers. Let's see what we can get. Oh my God, we can get one of a prototype of what we love to chase. Oh, and then we can get a catching guy. Oh, and we can get this guy too. That all works for us. And so that's what they've done. But he's going to be 33 next month, but he's still got 2 more years of team control. He's not a free agent until 2027. So this was more like, we're going to go get some guys we really like, because we've got a pretty good track record of finding everybody else's cast off from relievers and finding something out of them. So now I'm excited to see who's next, who they're going to go find off the dumpster fire and turn him into something, because Jason Adam was certainly flying under the radar when they acquired him a couple of years ago, and he's been just terrific for the last 2.5 seasons.
All right, let's talk about some FAAB. We've got this is going to be a pretty big FAAB week. Next week, I'm sure, will be a big FAAB week as well. Let's start with Devin Williams, who gets activated off of the IL. I really thought Devin Williams was not going to pitch this year. I mean, he's getting back surgery. They said he was going to miss at least 3 months. He's now missed the 3 months, but he is coming back. Do you think he goes straight back into closing, and how aggressive would you get on Devin Williams?
I was having this conversation yesterday. I'm wondering if Devin Williams is like renting an apartment for this weekend. So it's like, because you look at the situation, he's got, there's a club option after this year for $10.5 million. And then he's an unrestricted free agent after that. I think there's a 50-50 chance that Devin Williams is pitching his final games for Milwaukee. When you look at what they're 50-50, this is a coin flip with this. But when you look at, if you're concerned about a guy coming off back surgery and what he's got, and if somebody's asking for that, you should be shopping. And if somebody gives you the right thing and it's like, I don't see the terms, the club option includes a buyout, a $250,000 buyout. So this is not a prohibitive deal. I mean, we're already through. So he's making $7 million this year. You know, basically a team, if they wanted to trade for him, they'd be on the hook for roughly $2.5 to $3 million total if they decide to buy out the club option and make him a free agent. And if Williams has another setback after this season or during this, then what's Milwaukee going to have for him? So it wouldn't surprise me if Milwaukee trades him. So like with that said, that's why it's like the Megill situation kind of goes hand in hand here. Just because Williams is back, I'm not sure that there is, like I said, I'm very curious to see what Milwaukee does here, because the Christian Yelich news certainly is not welcome news for what they're trying to do. And if they could take advantage of this hot market and move Devin Williams, because remember, there was talk of them doing that before he went down injured. There was talk in the offseason about doing it. And so, you know, they've had plenty of time to think about it and see that, hey, we have somebody else who may be able to do this job. So if we can shop around, let's shop.
I'd be really surprised if a team like Milwaukee, I mean, I understand like they're kind of always looking to move expensive pieces and try to, you know, you kind of play both sides, you know, compete, but still, you know, restock their farm system, restock their major league system. But I mean, they've been such a good team this year that it'd be really, really shocking for them to kind of get this piece back mid-season and not hold on to him. I think if they try to move him, I think they try to move him in the offseason. I think that if Williams is right, he's an elite closer. It's a bummer for people who have been kind of benefiting from Tylor Megill, who's been really, really good this year. You know, he's already got 20 saves. I'm still holding on to Megill for right now, just in case of what you just said, and just in case, you know, Devin Williams gets hurt again. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's just coming off of back surgery. So, but I do think that Devin Williams is going to be the guy in Milwaukee, and I would be spending a ton of FAAB if I needed saves right now. So, moving right along, we have Robbie Ray, who came back and threw 5 no-hit innings for the Giants in his debut. I've been very adamant that I did not really want Robbie Ray on any of my fantasy teams this year because I don't like guys coming back from Tommy John, but he looks like the Robbie Ray of, you know, that we know and love. How are you approaching Robbie Ray during FAAB this week?
So I didn't get a chance to watch a game. So the most important question still has the tight pants.
Yeah, still has that.
Okay, then yeah, I'm all in. So if the tight pants things, let's go. The tight pants and the grunts. It's worth, like, if you're chasing strikeouts, you need it. Go ahead. Everything else is at risk. Can you go deep enough in a game to get a win? What's the command going to be like? It's going to hurt your whip. But if I need strikeouts, sure, I'm taking the chance on that. I don't believe I ended up with Ray in any league this year. I think it was last year. I ended up taking him and Rodon back to back in the league, and I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? So yes, some interest because there are some leagues where I need strikeouts.
Yeah, I think strikeouts is the big thing. Wins is going to be a problem. The Giants are not very good. They're probably going to get worse here over the course of the next few days, especially offensively. And we just saw him throw, like I said, 5 no-hit innings, and they didn't let him go over 5. Yeah. So, like, this tells you he's not going to go deep into games. I think one of my big concerns about a guy like Robbie Ray, I think Jeffrey Springs, who's coming back here from injury as well, is that these guys aren't going to go deep enough in games to kind of qualify for wins. And I think that the fact that Robbie Ray was fantastic through 5 and they didn't let him go any deeper tells you there's going to be a lot of like 3 2/3, 4 inning starts here down the stretch. But if you need strikeouts, 5 or 8 strikeouts in those 5 innings, you can get those right here from Robbie Ray. What about another guy coming back from injury? Clayton Kershaw. He's going to be available in a lot of leagues this week. He pitched well in his return. Any interest in Kershaw?
Always. I mean, as long as he gets B5 on that offense. Actually, that offense has got to get all of its pieces back. Freddie Freeman's on the emergency IL. Betts is out. I watched the the Framber Valdez outing the other night, and man, he looks so good against the Dodgers. Then I had to remind myself, this isn't like your dad's Dodgers. There's some missing pieces from this lineup, but Valdez certainly looked good in that particular game. But yeah, once everybody's back, and that should be sooner rather than later. Yes, of course, it may end up costing you more than you want, but you may also use this as an opportunity. Let's say you are in, like I was talking with Mike Gianella a little bit. Like if you've been holding your money in NL leagues looking for crossover trades, you've certainly been disappointed with things. And so if you've been sitting on FAAB cash and for some reason Kershaw is still sitting out there, that's your buy. That's your trade deadline acquisition. That's the crossover. You go buy that guy and don't try to speculate on the other stuff coming or waiting. If you have the opportunity now, treat it like some of these major league. We said 15 trades have already happened. So make an acquisition this weekend. And then if somebody outspends you on Kershaw, more power to them. And then you got next weekend to buy whatever happens in the next 72 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Kershaw is in a very similar situation to Robbie Ray, which is like, I just don't know how deep he's going to go in the games. He only went 4 innings in his first start back. So I think there's going to be a lot of management for him to make sure that he's healthy for the playoffs. But Kershaw's just been a great pitcher his entire career when he's on the mound. The question is, how long will he stay on the mound for, and how deep will they let him go into games? So definitely a guy I'm willing to attack, especially if I need strikeouts, especially if I, need a little bit of ratio help. I just don't know if the wins are going to be there because I don't know how deep he'll go into games. What about Tylor Megill? He coming off a pretty impressive start here, back with the Mets. Is he a guy that you're attacking in FAAB this week?
Yeah, and then you can watch him today. I mean, he's pitching against Atlanta, so he did well against the. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, if I'm looking at this correctly, he should be getting. No, I'm taking that back. David Peterson has it. No, Megill's pitch his next game's against the Angels, so that's a really nice matchup right out of the gate. And as long as the Mets are continuing to ride this heater, yes, let me have just about every Met guy I can take a chance at right now. I did want to look at something real quick on, strength of schedule is only as consistent as all these trade deadlines. The Mets currently have the 9th easiest strength of schedule the rest of the way with 58 games. They got 3 against the Sox, 3 against the White Sox, 3 against the Rockies, 3 against the Marlins, 3 against the A's, the Angels, and the Blue Jays. Around 7 games still against the Mets, but they don't have any other big series outside of that. So they still have a lot of softness in that schedule that Megill could take advantage of. And with that, again, the 9th easiest strength of schedule moving forward, sure.
Yeah, I mean, Megill is a guy, again, if he needs strikeouts, he should be available in quite a few leagues. He gets the Angels on Friday, and then that should line him up for at Colorado the following week. So
yeah, Cooper Criswell did it, but Nick Pivetta didn't. Oh God, that was so bad.
Mm-hmm.
If only I could only because I rarely get a chance to brag about fantasy success, but if I could talk about my AL labor staff for just a week while I'm there, because I've had a pretty incredible week despite Nick Pivetta blowing it up. I have had getting 6 wins in an AL only league and during the weekday is pretty awesome. And that's how that's happened. But like this week, despite Nick Pivetta, I have 6 wins, 1 save, a 1.62 ERA, and a 0.72 whip. Dylan Cease no hitter, Taj Bradley, 23 scoreless innings in a row. Brady Singer, Framber Valdez, and then Nick Pivetta, jackass. It really hurt, but yeah. So I'm really happy because I'm back in first place trying to defend that title. I jumped James Anderson, so now it's a matter of oh my God, now I got to hold on to this. So hurry! I need Giancarlo Stanton back because I need those RBIs type of thing. So let's go. All right, enough. That's it. Just had to squeeze that in there.
The upcoming schedule for Tylor Megill: he's at the Angels, he's at Colorado. And obviously things can change with, the trade deadline, with just people moving or being moved around. But if the schedule stays as is, he would get a 2-start versus the A's and the Marlins following that Colorado start. Ooh. So next 4 starts are actually really, really good for Tylor Megill. So I think Megill is a good guy to kind of buy and hold here for the next few weeks. So yeah, he is a guy that I would go out and get. Well, River Ryan came up, had a pretty good start. I don't know if he's in this rotation long term, considering what we don't know yet what the Dodgers are going to do in terms of trade. but he does have a start coming up. He's starting today versus Houston, but next week he's at Oakland. So is River Ryan a guy you would kind of take a shot on and see if he could stick in this rotation?
Not really. I mean, it's just, I don't know. At first, when I saw his name on the rundown, I thought we were like talking college football 25, and this was a recruit that you've created. Because I'm like, River Ryan, never heard of him. And so that kind of tells you I've never heard of him. I think this was just, we need somebody, let's get him. I'm seeing he pitched college at UNC Pembroke, which is about 2.5 hours east of me. But I'm also seeing that he has only worked 28 innings this entire season. So that's part of the issue as well. But no, I think this is really just a spot start type of thing. If he could stick and the matchups are fine, cool. But other than that, I don't get that. Getting back to strength of schedule, the Dodgers are smacked. They have the 12th easiest schedule the rest of the way. They still have 6 more games against the Rockies. Good for them. 6.
Yeah. Lucky. I'm kind of with you on River Ryan. Like, one, I think the Dodgers, if they want more help in the rotation, they will get it here in the next few days. And I just don't see that River Ryan's going to be able to continue to pitch meaningful innings down the stretch, considering, like you said, he just has not pitched a ton of innings over the course of the last few years. So, I guess he did pitch like 106 or 104 innings, something like that last year. But I don't know. I'm not necessarily a believer in a rookie pitcher like this pitching meaningful innings for the Dodgers down the stretch. I mean, they just DFA'd James Paxton because they're going to be full in the rotation here pretty quick. So I'm not too big on River Ryan. If you want to stream him for that Oakland start, I think that could be a decent idea, but there's also risk to that, because there's a really good chance that they make a trade here in the next few days and doesn't even get that start. So,
or it's Oakland. What Oakland are you going to get? You're going to get the one that puts up a double-digit run total, or the one that gets shut out? It's kind of crazy when you look at Oakland and how when they have a big game, they have a huge game. And I still don't understand why they're not actively shopping Brent Rooker. As I shared in our group text, like, but why? Why aren't you actively trying to sell this guy right now?
I have zero idea. Makes
I kind of get for a guy, because it's not like, oh, he's making too much money. He's still in his early control years, and it's just like the teams that are out there hurting for offense. Like, you could just go to Jerry DePoto and be like, Jerry, you need another bat, and just get something done. But I mean, that said, if I got Brent Rooker in a keeper league and this team is indeed playing in Sacramento next year, that's going to be a pretty big home run season.
Yeah. I don't know what the A's are doing. Speaking of the A's, though, Lucas Erceg probably next man up in the A's bullpen with Mason Miller on the IL, as you mentioned earlier. However, Tyler Ferguson did get the first save coming out of the bullpen. He's got 2 of them now. Yeah, so shockingly enough, their last 3 games, they've gotten 3 saves, which means they've won 3 in a row. Do you think this is a shared job? Do you think that Ferguson's the dude, or is it Erceg?
This pains me because, I have Mason Miller in that AL labor team, and all these saves that I could use are going to other people because he hurts his non-pitching hand. Getting back to the other thing, even Oakland should be looking. I mean, we're talking about 2 guys. Erceg just turned 29, and Tyler Ferguson's turning 31 this winter, and they picked him up. I mean, this guy's been a career minor leaguer. But I would say in this year, he's got 79 punchies in 53 innings and has allowed 2 home runs. I mean, those are great indicators. So for me, it's like, if I'm Oakland, I'm still trying to shop one of these guys. Yes, they're dirt cheap. I get that. That said, if I can get something for a minor league free agent that I just kind of picked up and has been doing well for me, why not do that with Ferguson? Because like I said, he has been bouncing around. He's pitched in Texas, Atlanta, Arizona, and then this year Oakland picked him up, and 52 innings and the strikeouts that I mentioned, 70 punchies and 2 home runs. So if somebody's like, hey, that looks good, and Erceg, I know Erceg, somebody I like coming into the season. We've seen him pitch previously with Milwaukee. Control has always been an issue with Erceg, but this year, for the most part, he looks. I mean, he's not Greg Maddux by any means, but he's not walking 6 guys per 9. He's cut his walk rate almost in half with that. And so, you know what reliever volatility looks like. Sometimes what goes up must come back down. It wouldn't surprise me if one of these guys is not still with this club after the trade deadline. But if they are, I would lean towards Ferguson having that job right now.
Yeah, I think that if both of these guys are on the A's come Wednesday, then this is a shared job. That this is going to be, maybe Ferguson gets 60%, and Erceg gets 40%. But we're talking about like they got 3 saves in a row. The next time, or it may take another month before they get 3 total saves for this ball club. So like, I'm not super interested outside of AL only leagues for either of these guys. But if you're desperate for saves. And I guess I would take the shot on Ferguson a little bit over Erceg at this point, since he got the last 2.
Like if I had like $5 to spend, 3 on Alexander, 2 on Tyler Alexander, 3 on Tyler Ferguson, 2 on Lucas Erceg.
Yeah. Like there wasn't a ton of offense to talk about for FAAB this week. And a lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about in terms of the trade deadline does focus quite a bit on pitching. But like, I couldn't not talk about Tyler Fitzgerald and just what he has done over the course of the last 10 days. He has been unreal. In 10 games, he has 8 home runs. He is hitting .429, .512, 1.229 slugging, 8 home runs, 13 runs, 13 RBIs. Like, are you picking up Tyler Ferguson, who is clearly just Barry Bonds reincarnated?
Yeah, it's one of these things where you almost feel like, man, I missed the goodness. Like Rhys Hines, when he came exploding out of the gate, you end up Rhys Hines, and now he's already back in Louisville. Or like, if for some reason you were on the outside looking in on Brenton Doyle, you were still like, I don't believe it. And it's been a month, and like, he's still hitting. Or you get into the situation where it's like David Hamilton. Wow, David Hamilton was great. Let me pick him up. And David Hamilton over the last month has not been great. I know we had a stolen base yesterday, but David Hamilton's numbers have certainly taken a tumble here in the last 3 to 4 weeks with that. But for the time being, yes, go invest, go spend some money on Tyler Fitzgerald because he's getting the opportunities, he's making the most of it, and we've seen crazier things happen. But I'm just surprised at his level of ownership in Yahoo leagues and even some standard 15-team mixed leagues. I'm still seeing him as a free agent out there.
Yeah, I mean, if he is available, you go and pick him up. But like, I think what you just said is exactly right, which is you've probably missed all of the goodness. He's available in every single one of my leagues, and as people know, I play in mostly deeper formats. So like, nobody has gotten any of this goodness in the leagues I'm in. I can't imagine he is going to continue this kind of stretch. Like, if you even look like during this hot stretch, he's got a 76% zone contact, which is 10% below league average. He is just on a heater. It's going to end. It's going to fall apart. It's not going to look good once it does. But if you want to kind of play around with it right now, it's going to play every day. And like I said, the Giants are probably going to trade off a ton of pieces here over the course of the next few days. He could be in full-time playing time kind of rest of the way. So like I said, I don't think this is anything special other than just the hottest run we've seen in years from a Giants player and from many major league players. But it's going to end. It's going to end poorly. There are going to be people today in my leagues that spend, $70, $80, maybe even $100 worth of FAAB on a guy like Tyler Fitzgerald. And like in my main event, for instance, like my offense is terrible. Like I think I've got 18 total points for my offense and like 60 something points for my pitching. Like, I need offense. I'm not investing in Tyler. I mean, he'll be in my bid list, but like, I'm not overly investing. Like, I'm not going to spend more than $30 on a FAAB on a guy like Tyler Fitzgerald just because I do not believe in this at all.
Yeah, I bring up resigns because in one of my NFBC, I'm like, I'm just trying to stay competitive. No hopes in trying to win, but I'm like, oh, I'll buy resigns. Yeah, no, that didn't work. But I was desperate. Yeah, so it is what it is. And yeah, I have bids in for Alexander, and it's, if I get them, fine. If I don't, oh well. But I've got money. It's like, in one league, I'm in first place, and I still have over $500 of FAAB. So I have money to burn.
Let's finish out with Joey Cantillo, who's going to be getting call up, I think today. For the Guardians. This is a top tier pitching prospect for the Guardians. Like you mentioned, they have their starting pitching depth has not been great this year and has put a lot of work load onto the bullpen. Cantillo is a guy that, maybe this is, instead of making a huge trade at the deadline, they just kind of go to their minor leagues and go, hey, we're going to give you a shot. Are you in on Joey Cantillo?
So preseason, I was all in on Joey Cantillo. He made my Guardians bold prediction series, was all in on this guy. If you look at his stats, and he came out of the Padres organization and then was traded to Cleveland in 21. I mean, we're talking strikeouts galore all the way through. Walk rates have been a problem. And that's still there this year. He got off, he hurt, he had a pretty severe hamstring pull. I think it was right at the end of Cactus League, or it was like potentially his first outing of minor league, but he had a pretty severe hamstring injury that's kept him out. He's worked all of 30.1 innings this season. And in 30.1 innings, he struck out 41, new league record, but he's walked 21, also a new league record. So that's kind of what we're getting into. And I only bring him up because if you're in the type of keeper league where he is still out there, you can make the acquisition. If you can, acquire and stash and look for the future to see what's there. I can't recommend using the guy right now because I don't know if he could even go 5. And if he goes 5, he could walk 5. But the stuff, go watch some YouTube clips. If you want to go back and look at my bold prediction, when I wrote about him back in January, you can go look up that article. But he's got stuff. He's there, but he's also trying to come back from a long layoff. So I don't want him on my roster, my active roster right now, but I am not ready to quit the upside that he brings to the table, especially given the fact what Cleveland's able to get out of just about anybody they use. I mean, I love the guy because he went to my college. Ben Lively has had a career of hopping all over the league. And look what Ben Lively's doing with Cleveland this year. So he has not been able to stick a job in Cincinnati or with Philly. I think he was at Texas at one point. I can't think, but he's been like the UCF guy, him and Dylan Moore, like 2 guys I hang on to. But Ben Lively is having a great year for the Guardians, and credit to Cleveland for getting the most out of these guys they continue to pick up.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm super interested in Cantillo, especially because his upcoming schedule, he's going to be home versus Baltimore next weekend, and then he will get I believe he's at Minnesota the following week. So guys with command and control issues that are young, he has thrown 5 innings in each of his last 2 AAA starts, so that is something. He is maybe able to go deep enough into games. That's if he can keep the control under check. Going up against a team like the Orioles and then a team like the Twins, I don't know that he's going to be able to do that. So I think he's more of a guy, like you said, in a keeper league where if you pick him up, you kind of get a discount on him for a future season. That is interesting. But in a redraft league, I don't know that I want Joey Cantillo right now. All right.
Fair enough. But I just wanted to add him because I was like, oh, he's making his major league debut today, and let's just bring him up. Just to talk about the
definitely got to watch
with him. Yeah,
we have not had a lot of pitching prospects come up and be difference makers this year, other than like Paul Skeens, who was drafted in most leagues anyways. So seeing a guy like Cantillo come up is definitely a guy to watch and kind of see. Guardians are a good pitching organization. Maybe they let him hit the ground running, and it's good. So definitely got to keep an eye on. That is going to wrap us up for this episode. Jason, remind everybody to reach on social media and plug anything you got going on.
So hanging out in a few places. Blue Sky, Threads, Joe Sheehan Slack channel. If you're not a subscriber, go get his newsletter. It's just excellent reading. And part of that is you get to participate in the Slack channel. And there's a lot of awesome people in there. So I have a lot of fun there. I wrote an article this week about some of those bullpen situations. We talked about Cleveland, talked about Baltimore and Houston. We didn't even talk about what Houston could potentially do, but Houston needs bullpen help. They're now finding themselves in first place and watching Seattle try to retool. So it wouldn't surprise me if Houston goes and gets Tanner Scott. But it kind of be redundant with the Hader Scott thing. But at the same time, it's depth. They need it. And we'll see where they go. But I would be surprised if they sit still, but they don't really have that much left to trade either. So they're on that tilt with that. And then obviously just trying to see who else, if Yandy Diaz and Isaac Paredes are going to still be around in this club in the next 48 hours.
Yeah, I wish you luck over the next 48 hours as your team gets dismantled little by little. And I hope that my team gets dismantled little by little as well. You can reach me on social media at Mason FWFB, on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, all of them. I mostly just use Twitter and YouTube, but one of these days I'll figure out how to make consistent other content on other providers.
They need to have some kind of thing where you post it once and it'd be like choose your platform to be like, hey, I need to go here, here, and here.
That's the beauty of like StreamYard is that I can do that. I don't. Yeah. I mean, I just send it to YouTube mostly and the occasional Twitch. But yeah, it'd be really nice if there was a platform where I could just like, hey, I'm going to write a tweet and it's going to send it out to all my social media platforms.
And maybe if somebody's listening, they're like, hey, old farts, there's this tool out here.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. Yeah.
So it's like, I know if I do an Instagram story, I can also post it to Facebook, but that makes sense. It's meta. It's all the same thing. But to have the ability to say, I want to post something to Blue Sky, that would also go to Instagram, that would also go to Threads. It's like have something that would kind of cross family lines, if you will. So
there you used to be able to like tweet and it would go to Facebook and it would, but that hasn't been like that for years.
Gone. Or if you post to Instagram, it's now just dumping the Threads because every now and then I'm like, I'm not that active on Threads, but I have stuff there, right? But I will post something on Instagram and all of a sudden I'm seeing, I'm like, I didn't put a thread out there, but it's coming up. But yeah, it would be nice if there was some kind of cross-platform solution where I could just like manage all of my social media from a singular platform.
Yeah. Someone figure that out for us, or tell us what it is because we're.
I'm not maybe Hootsuite. Like I know professionally, there's things like Hootsuite and different things that you can do. Like from a company, you can manage all those different things. But I'm an individual. I want to be able to like put one post out there and have it hit multiple platforms of my choosing that aren't related. So it's like, oh, it's a meta product. Okay, we can do these type of things.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, that will do it for us. For Jason and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.
Thanks, guys.